Hey, so welcome everybody back to the Sustainiacs on YouTube and podcasts and everywhere cool. We're connecting brands and companies and products with consumers so they can both live intentionally with ease. Everybody can. I'm Michael Vincent. I'm just a random guy trying to figure all this stuff out. And she is Emma Wightman. Emma, introduce yourself to the fine folks.
I'm Emma Wightman. You guys have seen me around here with Michael on this journey trying to figure life out here. And today we have the Railroad Sensei here with
Yeah, we do have the Railroad Sensei. You are right. Neither one of us know who this guy is. We just turned on the Zencaster and he was there. So we were like, hey, what the heck?
I found this bathroom wall, man. I just clicked on it. So
no, it's a great show. Yeah, we're talking to 3D visionary Brian Schnedler, the Railroad Sensei, and also CEO of Trivium Solutions, GXO, Acacia, you name it. He's done it. Railroad guy though, which is really cool. We're also going to talk a little bit about studying human behavior and how that relates to recycling. I think there's at least three of us on this call here who can figure a bit of that out, but let's get to it, shall we? Brian,
absolutely.
What's going on, my friend? Tell us a little bit about yourself. What do you do?
Well, I spent 18 years on the railroad, man. Basically, worked my way from the ground up. They literally put me by a switch in a yard and said, "Stand there until we tell you to throw it." And then worked to being a conductor. They trusted me with an actual list of manifests of what was in the train, and then one day it was raining and cold, and my engineer hollered back at me. He's like, "Hey, Brian, is it raining back there?" I said, "Hell yeah, it is." "Yeah, I ain't up here." And I was like, "That's it." So I went to be an engineer after that, driving trains. Got in my blood, and I just kept working my way up as hard as I can. And then about 2 years ago, I was contracted by Halliburton, and they were closing down the sand fracking facility at that time, right when COVID was starting to kind of peak. And
okay.
I said, man, I'm tired of doing this and, kind of getting slumped around. I want to do something on my own. And fortunately, in the masonry, I was a worshipful master in 2018 at my lodge. And that's where I met my business partner now, Darren Oglesby. He spent 30-something years in the military. He's a research scientist. He's worked in the oncology department for children. He's a very passionate man, very eclectic, very educated. And very entrepreneurial. So he told me, he said, "Hey, I know business, you know railroad, let's get it together." And that's really what started the journey. Along the way, though, we both had a passion about changing lives. And that was our main theme about anything we want to do. How can we give back? How can we help change lives as on a more, impactful way on a bigger scale? Because you can go mow your neighbor's yard, you can go do, and that's great and all. I'm not saying nothing wrong with it. It's just some small little ripple effects don't go very far. We wanted to take a boulder, just throw it in the damn water and splash it and let it touch anything and everything on any shore we're at. So our thing is changing 1 billion lives. We kept that and just stuck with it. We've been very privileged to be in some opportunities to be around other people that have, presented some things to us that allow us to be creative and step outside the box. And with that approach, we were sitting in a meeting one day and I hooked up with a clean energy company. It was a plastic company. They kind of developed how to transform the end of life plastic and turning into a hydrogen fuel of some kind. So they didn't have a logistics plan. They had nothing like that. And then they were wanting to go, get placed on a rail line or whatever. So I said, "Hey, I know one." I made the connection where I'm sitting there listening to this thing. And I looked at it and I was like, man, I'm here to design the logistics. The railroad's offering dedicated service 24 hours. And I'm like, that's dedication. And this clean energy is going to drive it. I was like, that's 3D vision, man. Design, dedication, and drive. And
okay.
And about that time, I think is when the container war was happening, and it went from like $2,000 to like $20,000 just to get something on a container over here. And I was like, Jesus, that's a lot of money, And I said, man, how do you pass cost savings on, to the consumer, to the public? How do you do that from that perspective? How are we? Because I knew then, we're on a shortage. Prices were going to start getting higher. And I was like, how can we turn this? So eventually I said, really the cost savings would be in the energy, the fueling. And I said, man, if we can come up with a concept, where we're not burning the fossil fuels and everything, it doesn't cost so much to do, and we have some kind of a sustainable, renewable energy, then hell, that's going to be easy to pass it on to the consumer. So I thought then that was when I came up with the 3D vision. And like I said, ultimately, our 3D model is a model for value creation is how we looked at it. We said, how do we create this axiom of value creation? Like, what do we do? And so go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. So you're the Railroad Sensei, right? and you've got these three like brand, or actually you got 4 brands associated with you, right?
Yeah.
Is this through Trivium Solutions Group that you're doing this energy or helping with this energy?
That's how that started. Yeah, that's how that started originally, because I was acting in a consultant form. So the Trivium Solutions Group is exactly what the name says. We're a group of experts who come together to provide the value of our experience and our knowledge in exchange for the value of what we can get from the other. So again, like we wanted to create this value with a purpose is all it was, so if you don't have a purpose behind it or a passion, you're not going to change a billion lives. You're not going to be able to communicate that to anybody else, And
no, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
I didn't want to make this about profits. I didn't want to make this about, how can we get in and make money? I was like, let's keep focused on changing a billion lives, and then, the rewards will follow with it. So basically we discussed a little bit more and came up with a more solidified strategy on just based on our collective vision here and our goal. Like we were supported by our dedicated service and all this is like, so we wanted to produce proven results based on insights and solutions that were for success, not just a deal with it kind of attitude or, or that waste management type thing. I feel like that has always been kind of a thing for me, is like, I don't understand the waste management part of it. It's like just dealing with it, sort of. That's how I felt.
Yeah, right. Like just dealing with it. So is it along the lines of making it business sustainable? Because, one of the things that I'm into is really getting into that sweet spot where you're not relying on human altruism to support it, right? You're not going to you don't have to take away from people supporting St. Jude's, because God bless them, and support St. Jude's. There's a lot of kids out there that need your help, and who else to give the money to than kids that need your help, damn it. But you can also just act intentionally in your everyday life and in your business life and support things like you're doing there, right? Is that kind of the deal you're talking about? That was
the thought of it, it's like if we start, because, my dad used to always tell me, kids, don't do what you tell them to do. They do what they see.
Yeah.
And so that kind of hung in my head a little bit, because I was like, I want to be an exemplary company. I want to show like, hey, we can create this environment, this culture, and this mindset and pass it on in that same energy, that same excitement to not just within, but again, the exterior value, so we kind of looked at it like, and I'm a little bit of a nerd about esoteric and metaphysical and math stuff. So in geometry and a triangle, when you look for the exterior value, you extend the line basically from that bottom line of a triangle, and you take that, and it's supposed to be equal of 2 corners of I think that's what it says. The theorem is something about that. You find the 2 values within inside the triangle, and that produces the exterior value. And that was kind of no one got it at first when I told them that. I was like, how do we create this exterior value to go on? So that was our thing, was like, so we came up with the 2 most important assets to focus on was sustainability and solutions to fix, not manage. And if we kept that thought of it, then that's what we were going to do. So in the meantime, we've been in some awesome positions and unique meetings that were, producing these things that we can apply outside in the logistics world, in the transportation world. And, I always felt like if we kind of start there just at the beginning, that will trickle more into the consumer and impact them, instead of trying to battle and create awareness. Like, every group does it. We have to create awareness. And it's like, I think we're all aware of it. I think we know we have been very irresponsible with our world And a lot of things
Mm-hmm.
that we've come through, we know the problems. It's not that we're blind.
Yeah.
It's like those commercials. We go nose blind.
Let me agree and disagree with you at the exact same time. Well, one after the other. I agree with you 100%. We are completely aware. What we're trying to do, what Em and I are trying to do, is create this, give people the awareness of how they can actually live intentionally fairly easily, just by bringing like your story to light and other people's stories to light that don't have that ability. It can be just that easy to buy this instead of that. For instance, one of the things I keep plugging, because someday they're going to sponsor me, is Beyond Meat. And I love the Beyond Meat jerky. And I've talked about it before. I'm going to keep talking about it, Em, and you can't stop me because it's delicious. And people look at it and they go, well, this isn't much healthier for you than regular meat. Well, we don't really know that for a fact. Okay. Beef jerky made out of beef is really not that bad for it. It's the sodium content that sucks on it. But protein and fat's very low. Protein's good. I won't get into all that kind of stuff. Same thing with Beyond Beef. The thing is this: if we stopped eating as many cows as we do, we'd get rid of like most of the global warming gases, because it's the cattle that we produce to try and feed our fat butts every day that's doing it, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's awareness of things like that are just like, eat one less steak and buy stuff from plain products, and understand that there's people out there like Brian, and you can actually support what they're doing fairly easily, right? Choose this over that is pretty easy. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'll have to digress on then and agree with you on that one, because
no, we agree 100%.
Yeah.
We're all aware that the place is screwed up. I agree with you 100%. The problem is getting that message out to people, because I agree with you. Everybody, and a vast majority of people walk down, I think Emma can chime in here as well, will walk down the street going, yeah, this place is screwed up, but then they never make an action because they don't know how to find and take those little actions, right, Emma?
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. And that's, I guess, why we like talking to people like you, is like your original model. You're just a railroad person, quote unquote. Right? But like eventually down the line, it's like, oh, well, I'm taking something I would be doing anyway, and I'm changing it, and making one of my core pillars as sustainability. And one of the sides of my triangle being sustainability. So how can I continue to do what I've always been doing, continue to live my life, but living with intention and choosing that more sustainable option, or taking a very small part of my business and changing the sustainability, and those small changes do add up. So I definitely understand what you're saying. Like I definitely agree 100% that people are aware, but I guess it's just that extra step of like, how do we get them there? You know what I mean? And especially in a business, like how can I make my business more sustainable without changing too much of like what the business is about, or like our day-to-day operations even.
Right.
So
and that was I think that's what I was trying to really say, is that people end up kind of getting stuck on the awareness part, just ringing that message constantly. It's kind of like, you can do positive thinking all damn day, and you can do whatever, but until you put action behind it, it ain't going to happen. It's like things don't change until you put that action in there. And I feel like that's what was kind of missing, was always the action part. I mean, the messages was always there, and it's great. It's just the action. And on the railroad, go ahead.
It's awesome, and we like talking to and speaking with more and more people like yourself who decided to take that action and are proving that action can actually be a sustainable business model, because that's one of the things I'm trying to fight. And I know Emma is trying to avoid and fight, I guess, at the same time, is we can't have the separation of people who want to do good by the environment and then people who want to make money and move society forward with technology, et cetera. It needs to be together. Otherwise, we're going to go nowhere. Otherwise, we're going to have Democrats and we're going to have Republicans, and we're all going to sit there and fight and not get anything damn done.
And that's why I thought it was interesting. I thought it was interesting that you said, you weren't coming out here to make money. And I guess that would be one of the questions I have for you, is like, you have found a way to continue to make money while still prioritizing sustainability. Like, is this something that people could take? Like, if you were to give one person a lesson about like, how could you continue to be sustainable while making money? Is it feasible, or do you have to prioritize one or the other?
It does have to be prioritized somewhat. Again, you have to have that clarity. If you don't have a clear vision on what you do, you're not going to have a direction. And I think that was the main thing is like, what is our end goal? What is our purpose? What is our, living life on purpose is what we kind of say. And again, I think it begins with responsibility first and acceptance of that authority, or that, having the authority to take that responsibility on. And I think that's what happens. A lot of people don't want to take on that responsibility, or they may feel like they have nothing to contribute in that aspect. But again, I'm just a railroader, right? And if I can do it, anybody can do it. And if I can do what I'm doing now, just imagine what more the next person can do than me, if they were to apply that passion or that thought process. Because, again, I've always kind of had an idea of what I wanted to do growing up, but it wasn't this. It wasn't being a railroader, And so I get to take that opportunity and change 1 billion lives. And that to me, that's exciting, because it's not just, like I said, mowing a neighbor's yard. It's not just carrying the old lady's groceries across the street for her. I get to change lives and do it on a big scale. Then I know that whatever reward comes back to me, whether it's monetary, whatever it is, that's going to be my reward. And ultimately, the main reward is going to be the opportunity to do more. So that's what I do it for.
So let me ask you an ignorant question, Brian. I've been in logistics for 35 years. I've done everything except work on a railroad. I've broken plenty of. Not at the moment, but you never know, my brother. I will keep your number handy. Things change in this business, as you know, really, really quickly. But aren't the engines actually just really large generators? I mean, aren't they usually diesel to generate electricity?
Yeah, they refer to them as diesel electrics. So we have a turbo on there and all that good stuff, which, again, is why I've always been kind of an advocate about rail, because you can do about 500 miles on a gallon of fuel, basically, on those things. And that's a whole damn train. That's quite a bit of freight. And again, that's why it's always been cheaper to ship on rail, as you kind of know, maybe.
Sure. Sure.
That's why I knew right there. I said, hey, immediately, if we can go into this fuel problem, that cost savings is going to be the first thing that's hitting the consumers and the shippers and manufacturers. You know what I mean? So that's like outstanding. Let's focus on that part of it. And I think, I read a book when I was like 17, 18 years old. It's called Ishmael. You guys ever read that? It's a book about a gorilla. A gorilla put an ad in the paper about teaching philosophy to somebody, and this guy reads it. He's like, "Oh, this got to be bullshit." He goes there, he finds this gorilla in a cage, and he starts, spatting all his knowledge about givers and takers, and how there's more takers in the world than there are givers. And when you outgrow that ability to sustain, or to have that ability to give, it kind of impacted me at that point, because I was like, man, that is the world today, because there's an unbalance. It's sad to see sometimes. It's just, you see hungry kids and all that stuff on the commercials, but we have that here too. We have it here, right here in America.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely. Sure.
And so my thought was like, it's crazy, because it's not just in one location or country or continent. A lot of it's everywhere. So I really kind of look for those people that can have the same drive and mindset as me, because I'm not the smartest guy in the room ever. So if I can find somebody with that passion to match, I guarantee, between that and kind of thinking outside the box, magic happens. And there's to me, there's no limit. And that's why I was kind of, thinking that, we can come in here and change lives and no problem. It's just kind of a thought process. I can't tell anybody what to think, but I can tell you how to think. And that's about it. And that's really it.
I would say that a lot of times,
when you talk about givers and takers, because I feel like you are giving maybe corporations or consumers, whoever it is that is using these railroads that are, they're getting this cost savings. So they're taking that cost savings, but they're also, in a sense, working to give back to the general global community, because it is end up being more sustainable. Like, you're providing this kind of outlet for these people to be both givers and takers, I guess, and kind of try and even out the playing field in that way a little bit.
And what does balance rely on there, Emma, is responsibility.
Right.
So That's the true message
Well, I
that needs to be rung, is responsibility.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, the thing is, more givers beget more givers, right? In my opinion. I mean, if you keep everybody starts giving, you get more givers. And as you give, and like you said before, Brian, you lead by example, you move forward, people see it, and you affect people in a positive way by your actions and what you do. I've always contended that we are actually the answers to the prayers. Is when you tune yourself into that higher reality, you start to realize that you're actually the tool here to be used to make
Absolutely.
things happen. Right? And then you start living with intention and good things start to happen in that situation.
Yes.
Let me ask you this, what you're doing there with the clean energy there, a little bit specific on that. We've got a lot of good philosophy. I think that we understand just how nuts you are. No, but real quick. So in the energy, the clean energy that you're doing out of the plastics, so you're helping to support a company that or people that are doing that through monetary and through testing and that type of stuff. Or can you tell us a little bit about that? Or
a lot of these projects are just kind of coming out the chute, so to speak. The concept is there, again, and I think what is exciting about it is, as we try to move to this decarbonization plan, a lot of people are looking more towards hydrogen fuel, things like that.
Sure.
Unfortunately, the market just isn't there right now. And then, so everyone kind of leans more towards an EV, like solution. Like, hey, if we can do the electric vehicles and that kind of,
or like your RNG, your renewable.
Yeah. What's really neat about this project that we're working on right now, basically it can take almost any type of waste, solid, medical, and turn it into some kind of a biofuel. Now, with that being said, you could take that concept and apply it to, say a truck or a train or something, and modify it to where it can accept that fuel. Then as that market kind of, exposes itself a little bit more, you can still kind of, keep continually modifying the system that you have in place. So that way, you can get into it. But some of the studies that we've come across and read on is that, amazingly, you would think if you use a biofuel, you may not have that combustion, capability that it typically produces. But some of
the energy density, right?
Yes. Some of the fuel produces way more, and like they drive way better and go, further. So I was like, wow, that's interesting. Again, I think if we apply that to the transportation world, I mean, there's one way of that cost savings and letting it trickle down into the consumer itself and into the markets. Another great thing, I mean, we've been able to come across is, just different things here and there that get to, really in addition to that concept and be involved with other projects that kind of help clean the environment as well. That's where that synergy gets to kind of come in play. And I think, the neat thing is I'm kind of a networkpreneur. So when I get these people together, that's what I see things. I'm just like, wow, that's, I can't believe that just happened. So we're at that point right now. We're at that stage right now where, again, I think we are, really motivated, and we continue to drive this thing as hard as we can with it and bring people on with the like-minded attitudes and stuff that, we are able to put these things into place and demonstrate it more and bring it out in front of the people that need it and the companies that need it the most. And I think if we do that there and get that there, I mean, that's leading by example from them and from us. Mm-hmm. That's how that is going to kind of come together. But ultimately, I mean, we're very excited about the opportunities that we have right now with this. So.
Great. Well, it's cool too to be able to take a cool concept or a cool idea, and you're I know I already said this kind of, but like you're helping other people get there. Like you're seeing in real time the work that you're doing, and you're saying, all right, well, here's the solution. Let's implement this now, like nationwide or whatever it is. Like it's cool to see other people that are jumping on the bandwagon because of the things that you have done and what you've worked so hard to do.
Yeah, so I think people just need an opportunity. You just need that opportunity. Sometimes, there's people that do want to help, but they don't know where to start. They don't know how. And I think if, it's just like, when you give somebody a chance and you believe in them, those people are the rock stars. That's when they make things happen. And I think that's somewhat in the same way, we want to, in turn, give that to the people out here on the outside. It's like, I know people want to help and they want to, to change things, but how do they do it? And if we can provide that opportunity for them and allow them to do it, I mean, who knows, you might have them on the podcast next talking about the great achievements that they've made, and that's what we're kind of looking at. That's how our drive is for it, is like, we want to give this excitement and energy to the next person. I mean, the quiet person is probably sitting on the damn, solution and cure for everything in the world right now. They just don't know how to speak up. They're scared. They probably got the answer.
Yeah, you're right, and I mean that's part of accepting everybody for their diversity and everything, and listening to everybody, and realizing that you said something earlier, and I was going to mention that a lot of times I think the smartest person in the world in the room is the one that realizes that they're actually not, and they.
Well, I get that every day, man. I'm not the smartest guy in the room. Not even you.
See how brilliant you are?
Yeah.
You're so smart. You're so smart. You realize you're not.
Yeah.
You didn't know you were that smart, did you?
Everything dropped as soon as Emma got on. I was like, damn, I'm really dumb now. Like everything.
Well, hey, Emma, should we switch a little gears here? You want to talk a little bit about what's in the news here with us a little bit there, Brian?
Yeah, absolutely. This is pretty yeah, I like that.
I think it's pretty interesting, and I think it goes along with the discussion we've had today pretty well. This is pretty cool. Emma, you want to kick us off here?
Yeah, definitely. So this was in the news. This article by Steve Tolikin. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, but it was a kickstart gearing up against cutting single-use plastic. So basically, this is a research study that's being done to study human behavior to see if human behavior can help with recycling. So like you said, there are a lot of us who are trying to pay attention, a lot of humans that are aware about the issues involved with like plastics and recycling and all that stuff. But knowing what to recycle can still be very confusing. Labels are very vague. Yeah. Size comes into play. There's a whole lot of issues there. Standards are different from city to city. It's just kind of crazy. So I guess they were studying human behavior. This a new effort funded by charitable foundations by Milliken and Co. and Walmart, who are trying to help sort out some of this confusion by studying the way that human behavior impacts our recycling.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, really what it is that what they found in looking at this, and if you go deep into this is from plasticnews.com. I encourage you to it's a free subscription to these guys. And it's really good because you'll see like new technologies in plastics manufacturing along with recycling issues and stuff like that in there. It's both sides of the coin from Plastic News. Pretty good publication, electronic publication that I subscribe to as well. But it's basically what we talked about before, and what we were talking about earlier, Brian and Emma, is they found that people, the basic human wants to do it. They're so damn confused. Can I do a RIC 1 or can I do 2? Are they just white plastic bottles or are they the clear plastic bottles this week? What days of the week can I do it? Where do they accept them? Can I go down to the dump and they'll take them? Will they take them 24/7? All this crazy stuff that is going on. I don't really understand why they need this study to figure this stuff out, but I guess they do. The interesting, but it is very interesting because you got Milliken President Halsey Cook said, they're working with the centers. The centers work to build consumer confidence and equitability. To overcome barriers. Residential recycling will become a critical element of our strategy to solve the plastics end of life challenge. And what he's talking about is that people aren't going to get on board with recycling until they're confident something is actually going to happen from their effort, because they're starting to realize and they've figured out that it's wish cycling. Nothing's really happening when you get down to the surface of it.
Yeah, and see, I think that kind of this psychological approach on that, man. I was going to say earlier, like, we are creatures of habits. And I think that a lot of it has to do with, our everyday living. People get into this habitual, thing, and they don't know any better. They just don't think, they don't really have the ability to break that cycle. And I think really that's where it changes again with the thought process of taking responsibility and what kind of habits are we producing first of all, and I think if we hit the source and nail it there, instead of like, I used to hate when I was a kid and I got in trouble, if something happened, my mom would be like, just deal with it. Like, I was tired of dealing with it. I don't want to deal with it anymore. I did it my whole life. I'm ready to fix it. I'm ready to change it. And I think from a psychological approach, what I've noticed is a lot of it just has to do with habits. Everybody's got their own habits every day. We have our routines, and and really just like, again, if you can apply that and be responsible and live with a purpose, live with intention, there's the beginning of it right there. I mean, it's not, Amen. You don't have to go down to you don't have to worry about recycling or going there. Just start there and then find out, where your passion is, what you want to do, what really motivates you, and what is it that, you want to do to contribute to the world at large.
And I also think that a lot of people feel like they have to do too much. Like you feel like you have to right away, like zero waste and cut all of your plastic. People think you need to go like net zero with carbon, and like all of these things are awesome and they're great if you're able to do it, but it's very rarely possible, and people get intimidated and then they don't want to do anything because they're like, well, it doesn't make a difference anyway.
Somebody else will do it. Yeah.
Right. So I think that, I mean, there is definitely something to be said for the way that, like, telling yourself that these small changes that you're making are adding up, even if it might not feel like it on a day-to-day basis, It's interesting. Yeah.
And it starts with us.
Here's another thing. Sorry about that. Here's another thing I wanted that was in this article that I wanted you guys to get your opinions on, because it's quite interesting. The entire thing is not just on that, although that is a big part of it and the main thing, but also the gearing up against cutting the single-use plastics, right? There's a plastics trade group that's really fighting against the proposal from the Biden administration to reduce the government purchase of single-use plastics. And that's an issue that is coming up with the National Park Services as well, reducing the amount of single plastics that they're using and turning to other things. And it's interesting because it's not the fight that you may think immediately in your head. It's not this fight from plastics manufacturers saying, hey, wait a minute, we're going to lose a ton of money. It's a fight back from some environmentalist groups and from the plastics industry that are saying, hey, wait a minute, the slippery slope of just eliminating plastics and going to other materials may be worse for the environment than not, right? It's kind of that thing where we don't
have the infrastructure in place. I would love if everybody could stop using single-use plastics tomorrow, but we don't have alternatives in place yet that will, like, I'm a big runner. I do road races all the time, and it pains me to see when I'm out and I'm racing on the road and there's covered in plastic trash. And it's like, from the little cups, and it's like, oh, well, we can do like the little paper cups, but those are still lined with plastic. Like that, in that situation, that is something where we don't have the infrastructure yet to figure out how to reduce that single-use plastic. So if we don't have that infrastructure, it's going to be so much more costly while we trial and error to try and figure out these other ways. I mean, we might end up using more energy, more waste, more like everything to get us to a point where we thought we were being more beneficial. I mean, again, coming from a place where I am trying to be as plastic free as possible, sometimes it's just, it's not possible right away. It's too fast. Like, we need to get the infrastructure and the science and the technology on board first, and then we can start that slow transition.
We need people like Brian and others to figure out the logistics part of it, myself included. I'm in that game as well, 35 years in logistics, to figure this out, because you take everything that is shipped in plastic right now, all that plastic packaging, and start utilizing, I guess, traditional glass and that type of stuff. Hey, you want to talk about some carbon footprint.
Glass is so heavy, and I don't have to tell you guys this, but the cost and the carbon emissions from shipping, let's say, the same amount of glass compared to plastic is so much more, because the glass is so much heavier, and you can ship fewer in a load. I mean, I'm sure you guys know, because you're both in logistics and freight and transportation and stuff. But it like, to the energy required to make a coffee cup, like a reusable coffee cup, something like, you will never be able to use that coffee cup enough to justify the energy that's used. But then again, that's not saying that we shouldn't go that route. It's just that we need to find other ways to get there. Like, I'd like to eliminate it, but we first have to figure out how to get there. And potentially, even if we're reducing the emissions of the shipping, maybe that helps negate some of that, right? So it's cool to see people working on the solutions now.
Yeah, it's a logistics issue, and one of the things that Brian and I are talking about off air, and some others, is some logistics solutions that that OPT is bring to the United States as well. It solves a lot of that issue, the volume weight metrics and the distance that recycled plastics has to travel before it gets put back into the circular economy, creating that circular economy, which is awesome. One last thing from that article that I do want to mention, because people will see this, is that the recycled plastics pricing has had a bit of a downturn in its value over the last month or so, but it's really to be expected. It almost tripled over the last couple of years with all the manufacturing and stuff that blew up in the housing market, et cetera. Most of the carpet, if it's not wool, is made out of recycled PET bottles anyways. The yarn is recycled plastics. And so a lot of that demand has gone down, but it's temporary and it'll be moving back up. It's one of those things that people will read into seeing, man, see, you can't create a good market. Well, no, it's not true, because wood went through the roof and then came down as well. The spread between rail and truckload was enormous for a while there as truckload prices went through the roof, right? It was so cheap to go rail versus truckload for quite a while that the railroads could not handle the amount of volume that was being blown up on them, right? Yeah. Am I wrong, Brian?
No, that's terrible, man. That was the environment that we've been in, and within the last 2 years since COVID it's been outstanding on one hand and also kind of a shit show on the other.
Well, it's funny because when you're in transportation, it's funny because it's like the worse the service gets, the higher the cost gets. Yeah. Just seems to work out that way, right?
That's great.
Because it's supply and demand. If you can't get a truck, people pay twice as much, but it'll take 3 times as long to get there. So that's where it happens.
And you know what?
And
what happens after that, that sweet taste of the cheaper price goes away real quick when you don't have the reliability and the resilience that's there to match it. At the end of the day, you're like, damn it. Thought I was getting into
Amen. I was a broker. I brokered LTL and truckload. I've been on the asset side, the brokerage side of trains, warehousing, trucks, you name it. I've had those carriers on my list that I just say, hey, listen, there's your cheapest option. It'll get there eventually, but don't call me when it's late. I'm just telling you now. If you press that button, don't call me if it's late.
I think I watched an episode of The Office one time, and that guy, I forgot what he said. He said, "It ain't good to look cheap, and it ain't cheap to look good."
That's true.
I like that. As stupid as that was, I was like, I'm keeping that one.
That's pretty true. Hey, Brian, this is awesome stuff. Do you want to give out some information as to how people learn more about what you're doing there and jump on board and try and learn more about what's going on?
Yeah, sure, man. Really, you can probably just find me on LinkedIn the most. That's where I like to rock and roll at and really kind of network through there. Like I said, I look for things that pop up and people that pop up, just kind of outside the box deal. But you can look on there for Railroad Sensei. You can get me at Brian at triviumsolutionsgroup.com. Matter of fact, today, man, is an amazing day for us. So Acacia Logistics, we just broke out. Today was kind of our soft grand opening. We partnered with the help.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah. So since today is 8/8, we figured, let's call our theme 88 Days of Greatness. We got some benchmarks and some milestones out in front of us. I mean, some bodacious goals, of course. I mean, like no one's going to expect that less of me because I'm nuts. So we got some big goals, and again, it's not about really necessarily accomplishing them right away or coming out and trying to do so much at once. It's just like, hey, here's our marker. Whatever we do and however close we get to it, that's that much more closer to it. Let's revisit it. We'll review it. What we do right, what we do wrong, and like what can we do better to improve it moving forward. We partnered up with a hell of a group up here in Kansas City called LK Transport, and they do a lot of warehousing LTL. So we said, hey, let's combine forces like Voltron, man. Let's make an impact. Let's try to start here, at the local economy in Kansas City, Missouri, and then push it out and let's pass it on. So, but again, so we're excited about that. And then we also have a company called Go Railroad. We kind of focus more on contract switching, things like that, ports, industries, things like that. So it's not really like a railroad in that sense, but, we like to get a crew in there, whatever, handle that. And again, the Trivium Solutions Group, it's just a group made up of C-level executives to, like I said, that bring their experience, their and their intelligence to the table and apply it to those, projects that come to board. And we kind of find out like who's best to work what and kind of throw them in there and let them go at it, So that's kind of what we're doing. But again, we'll have some websites out pretty soon and whatnot. We're not quite there yet today. Again, we're just kind of starting the freight brokers. So we're excited. So give me a couple months and I'll come back and I'll throw something at you and then we'll kind of promote it there. But again, thank you for having me. I'm glad to come through.
Absolutely.
And a great conversation. Like I said, I love this kind of stuff. So, and Emma, if there's anything, you reach out to me anytime. I would love to kind of talk to you a little bit more too, and whatever else, and get you guys involved with what we get into, and kind of keep you on board with it.
Yeah, it's
very
super
cool
to learn about. It's something I don't know a lot about, so it's interesting to sit here and try and absorb it all in.
Hey, in a couple months, I'm working on a podcast. So I'm going to have a Railroad Sensei podcast. So
I love it.
I'm going to try.
On your podcast, do a little switch.
Yeah, my company is like GXO, or like I got the railroad spikes that make the X kind of. So I was like, I'm going to be like GXO Radio with your host.
There you go, GXO Radio. I love it. I love it, dude. Thanks, Brian, for being on. Emma.
Take care.
Emma, wait, hold on a second there, Brian. Let me close out here. I want to talk to you for a second after this, if you got a minute. But hey, hit us up at Sustainiacs@gmail.com or Sustainiacs.com. The Sustainiacs@gmail.com or Sustainiacs.com is the website. If you got any questions or a topic, or you got a product or a company that you want us to talk about or come on and be a guest or whatever it happens to be, right, Emma? Where are they reaching out to you at?
Good. And they can find me at OPT_Emma on Instagram. Definitely send me a DM, comment on any of my reels or posts, and we can chat. And we'll keep highlighting these really cool people doing really cool things.
Hey.